They say the worst betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from family. My name is Adam Atlas. I'm 35, and for the last 11 years, I was the silent engine that kept Atlas Motors running across Missouri. 7 dealerships, 300 employees, more cars moved per year than any other family-owned operation in the Midwest. But all that didn't matter the day my brother walked me into a boardroom and handed me a pink slip with a smile. It was a Monday, Springfield, Missouri, unseasonably warm for early April. I wore the same gray shirt I always wore on inventory days. Didn't think I'd be packing up my office in it. Ryan Atlas, older by 3 years, shinier by 100, sat at the head of the table like he just won a Grammy. He wore his usual tailored navy suit, white sneakers, and that smile that could sell ice to an Eskimo. Flanking him were 2 guys I barely remembered from his college days, Brandon and Chase. Or maybe it was Blake. Didn't matter. All I knew was they were board members now, courtesy of Ryan's charm and Dad's disinterest. Ryan cleared his throat like he was hosting a TED Talk. "Adam," he said, leaning back with his fingers laced behind his head, "you've done great things for Atlas Motors. You kept it running through the 2008 crash, handled supply chain during COVID, but we're evolving." I said nothing, just waited. "Our vision," he continued, "is upscale, sleek, luxury redefined. That means reinventing how we operate, streamlining, modernizing, and unfortunately, letting go of some old-school methods that no longer fit." I glanced around the room. Not one person could look me in the eye. Ryan slid a manila envelope across the table. "Effective immediately. Severance is generous. And hey, no hard feelings." I picked up the envelope. Thick paperwork in silence. I stood slowly, unclipped the keys from my belt. 7 labeled fobs, 1 for each dealership, looped on a ring I'd carried for over a decade. I placed them on the polished oak table. The sound echoed more than I expected. Then I looked Ryan in the eye and said, calmly, "Hope the Springfield lot's lease renewal goes smoother than last time." His smile faltered. Just a flicker. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But I did. I walked out of that boardroom with nothing in my hands and everything I needed in my back pocket. See, Ryan always thought he was the face of the company. Flashy, loud, and born for the showroom. While I was the one making sure cars got delivered, titles got filed, and our staff had paychecks on time. He sold the sizzle. I grilled the steak. But none of that mattered to our father. Frank Atlas built the first dealership with his bare hands. A war vet with grit under his nails and chrome in his veins. But when it came time to name a successor, he picked the one with a business degree and a tooth-whitening sponsorship on Instagram. He picked Ryan. Still, I never complained. I stayed focused, quiet, strategic, because years ago, Dad told me something I never forgot. It was a late night. We were standing in the middle of the Springfield lot. The sodium lights buzzed overhead. He handed me a set of blueprints. "You know what makes this business valuable, Adam?" he said, tapping the concrete under our feet. "Cars." I guessed. He chuckled. "Cars depreciate, son, but the land under our lots, that's forever." At the time, I didn't know what to do with that wisdom. But 5 years ago, after Ryan had already started treating the company like a nightclub, I made a move. I created a company, AA Holdings LLC, and I used my savings, my bonus checks, and a quiet investor to buy the land under our 3 busiest dealerships, Springfield, Kansas City, and Columbia. Not the buildings, just the dirt. And every month since then, Atlas Motors have paid me rent. Triple net leases. Clean. Legal. Boring. Ryan never looked twice. He thought AA Holdings was just another faceless landlord. He thought wrong. I spent the rest of that Monday cleaning out my office. Didn't take long. I travel light. Just a framed photo of Mom before she passed, a Model 69 Camaro I've wanted since I was 12, and a mug that said, "Real men know their torque." On my way out, I nodded at Janice, our receptionist. She looked heartbroken. "Is it true?" she whispered. "You're leaving?" I nodded. "For now. Ryan says he wanted to slow things down. Take some time off." I smirked. He's good at making stories up. Then I stepped into the sunlight, exhaled, and checked my watch. 60 days. That's how long was left on those leases. 60 days before Ryan would have to choose between swallowing his pride or watching the foundation beneath Atlas Motors start to crack. I didn't need a title to win. I owned the ground he stood on, and that's where the real game began. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Every month, rent checks slid across from Ryan's accounts to mine. No one batted an eye, not even Ryan. He was too busy chasing the next big deal, the next flashy partnership, the luxury rebranding he'd sold the board on. Here's the thing. Ryan never read the lease agreements. Not really. He signed the paperwork as a formality. Trusted the lawyers. Trusted the yes men on the board. Trusted that business was business. He assumed AA Holdings was just another faceless landlord. One of those cold corporate entities no one bothers to scrutinize. That assumption, it was his blind spot. Because the leases were due for renewal in exactly 60 days. And I was ready to triple the rent. I wasn't just playing landlord. I was playing chess. The night after my firing, my phone buzzed. A text from Joe, the lead mechanic at the Springfield dealership. "Adam, something's off. Ryan's cutting techs, pushing used cars as certified pre-owned. Smells like a lawsuit brewing. And my contact at the county office says he's registered an auto company. Man, what's going on?" I had no idea what Joe was talking about, but one thing I knew was that Joe was a straight shooter. He didn't text a gossip. I knew this was a crack in the armor. I replied, "Keep me posted." By the next morning, I was already digging through county records, zoning permits, business registrations. What I found made my blood run cold. Ryan had set up a secret company, RVA Luxury Autos. The name alone was enough to make you cringe. But worse was what I found next. Building permits for a new dealership, right next to the flagship lot in Springfield, the heart of our family empire. He wasn't just trying to modernize Atlas Motors. He was setting up a competitor, a rival company with a similar name, similar inventory, even the same sales slogans. It was a classic corporate coup, the kind you see on TV, not in small-town Missouri. That's when I realized Ryan wasn't just firing me because I was old school. He was trying to bleed Atlas Motors dry, drive it into the ground, and then buy the pieces back cheap, under the radar, through RVA. All while the rest of us thought he was just leading us into a brighter future. But I wasn't about to let that happen. Not without a fight. I started putting the pieces together. Lease renewals, legal documents, financial statements. Ryan's cuts to tech staff were already causing internal turmoil. He was desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. His failure to see AA Holdings as a threat was the biggest one. That week, I called a trusted lawyer. Explained the situation. We mapped out a plan. If Ryan tried to force the sale or default on leases, AA Holdings could force eviction or demand full market rent at triple the current rate. Plus, the lease agreements had clauses protecting tenants from being squeezed out without cause. Because Ryan was about to give plenty of that. I was quiet, patient, watching, waiting. Ryan was blinded by his own ambition, too busy spinning stories for the board and investors to notice the foundation beneath his feet was shifting. One evening, I got another text from Joe. "This is getting worse." Sales guys whispering about layoffs. Text talking about union talks. Customers complaining about quality. I typed back, "Hold tight. I'm working behind the scenes." The game had changed. Ryan thought firing me was the last move. He was wrong, because sometimes the strongest power comes from the ground beneath you. And that ground, it was mine. If Ryan thought he could bluff me into submission, he was about to learn the hard way what patience and preparation really look like. A few days after my discovery about RVA Luxury Autos, Ryan called an emergency board meeting. You see, I still sat on the board, though I was no longer on staff. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a wrench. He stormed in, flanked by his usual yes men, the same college buddies who'd nodded along to every one of his schemes. His face was pale, his voice sharp. Before he could open his mouth, I spoke up. "Funny thing," I said, calm as you like, "I brought some reading material for the meeting." Ryan shot me a look that was half confusion, half fury. I opened a folder and slid out a thick stack of papers. RVA's business plan. "We've been competitors this whole time. Ryan versus Atlas Motors," I said, voice low but clear, except it wasn't a competitor. It was a Trojan horse. The room fell silent as the board members flipped through the documents. Marketing strategies, inventory lists, sales projections, our slogans, copied almost word for word. Even the client database, names, contacts, purchase history. Ryan's secret side project wasn't just a rival dealership. It was a deliberate plan to bleed Atlas Motors dry, buy the company's assets on the cheap, and rebrand everything under RVA's name. And the more they read, the harder it was for his yes men to keep smiling. Then Frank Atlas spoke. Our father, the man who built this empire from scratch. He'd been quiet, watching all along as Ryan made his moves. But now his voice broke the silence like a hammer on glass. "You're gonna bleed Atlas dry," he said, eyes locked on Ryan. "To fund your side project?" Ryan's face twitched. No answer. The boardroom had turned into a courtroom. And then the unthinkable happened. One of Ryan's closest allies on the board, a fraternity brother from their college days, cleared his throat. "Actually," he said, voice shaking just a little, "I think it's time we reconsider our position." Eyes widened around the table. "I've seen the numbers," he continued, "and the plans. Ryan's been planning this for months. If he succeeds, Atlas Motors is finished as we know it." It was a total flip. One by one, other board members started murmuring in agreement. Ryan's carefully crafted illusion was cracking. That's when I laid out my next move. "I'm already a step ahead," I said. "Missouri Auto Group is ready to partner with me. If Ryan forces a sale or bankrupts Atlas Motors, Missouri Auto will acquire the buildings and keep this business alive." The room buzzed with a new kind of energy, the kind that only comes when survival is on the line. Ryan's face drained a color. He tried to interrupt, but Frank raised a hand. "No more games," he said. "Either you step down or you'll lose everything." Ryan stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I watched him go, knowing the game was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, I felt the upper hand. Because I wasn't just fighting for a family business. I was fighting for the legacy our father had built. And sometimes, the strongest moves come when you're underestimated the most. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Ryan didn't take his defeat quietly. Far from it. The next morning, I got a message from one of the senior mechanics at our Springfield dealership. The kind of message that sets off alarms. "Ryan's calling a meeting. He's telling everyone you sold them out. Says you're the problem." I knew then this was going to get ugly. The showdown came sooner than I expected. Ryan marched into the Springfield lot like he owned the place, which, technically, he did as CEO. His charisma was in full force, flanked by a handful of loyal employees he'd handpicked to spread his version of the story. "We're moving forward," Ryan announced, voice booming through the service bay. "And that means cutting ties with outdated thinking. Adam sold you out for a quick payday, left us to bleed." Heads turned toward me. I stayed quiet for a moment, letting the words hang heavy in the air. Then I pressed play on my phone. Ryan's own voice filled the room, crystal clear. "Atlas is a dinosaur," he told investors in a private meeting I'd recorded weeks ago. "RVA's the future. The old way is dead." Gasps, murmurs, faces shifting from confusion to shock. That recording changed everything. The senior mechanics and sales staff who'd been wavering suddenly found their courage. One by one, they stepped forward. "If Ryan stays, we walk," the lead mechanic said bluntly. Another nodded. "I've worked here 15 years. We're not loyal to a CEO who sells us down the river." The tension cracked open a floodgate. Employees who'd been scared to speak out suddenly voiced their frustrations. The idea of losing their jobs, their benefits, their future, it hit home hard. And then came the final blow. Frank Atlas, our father. He showed up at the Springfield lot that afternoon, quiet but commanding attention the moment he walked in. He looked directly at Ryan. "Resign," he said slowly, "or I vote with Adam." Ryan's jaw clenched, so tight it looked like it might break. He knew the boardroom wasn't the only place where power mattered. This was his family, his legacy, and it was crumbling. The final scene was almost cinematic. Ryan stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind him. He jumped into a sleek Corvette on the lot, tires spinning in place, smoke billowing. The crowd outside watched in stunned silence as he peeled out, the engine roaring like a beast finally unleashed, but also cornered. That day, everything changed, not just for Atlas Motors, for our family, for the future of the business. Because sometimes the biggest battles happen not in boardrooms, but on the ground, where the people who keep the wheels turning stand their ground. And they chose the side that stood for loyalty, integrity, and a real future. The dust hadn't even settled when Missouri Auto Group stepped in. They moved fast, faster than I expected, actually. With Ryan out of the picture, the board saw an opportunity to stabilize Atlas Motors' chaos. Missouri Auto wasn't just some rival. They were a respected powerhouse with deep roots in the state and a reputation for turning things around. The rebranding wasn't subtle. New chapter. The CEO of Missouri Auto told me over coffee in their downtown office. Same people, better vision. That meant keeping our staff, mechanics, salespeople, support teams. They honored every warranty, every deal that Ryan had almost jeopardized. I watched the relief wash over the faces of longtime employees. Their jobs saved, their futures intact. It wasn't just business. It felt like redemption. Negotiations with Missouri Auto Group were straightforward but strategic. I had one condition. Because I own the land under 3 of the busiest lots, I'd get a cut of the future profits tied to those properties. A fair deal. A smart deal. It gave me a stake in the company's success without being chained to day-to-day drama. They agreed. Meanwhile, Ryan's world started to unravel. RVA Luxury Autos, his secret pet project, collapsed like a house of cards. Investors, spooked by the leaks and boardroom betrayals, pulled out. Without capital, RVA had no chance. He went from golden boy to cautionary tale in less than 6 months. My first rent check from Missouri Auto Group came sooner than I imagined. I took that check and drove straight to a classic car dealer, one I'd admired since I was a kid. A '69 Camaro, vibrant red, chrome gleaming like new, the muscle car of my dreams. When I signed the papers, it wasn't just a purchase, it was a symbol, proof that patience and strategy pay off. But I didn't stop there. I had a surprise for Dad. Frank Atlas had always been the rock of our family, the man who taught me the value of land and legacy. I found a '57 Bel Air, a rusted relic that Dad used to talk about from his youth. It needed work, a lot of work. So I got it restored to showroom condition, every detail perfect. When I handed it over, Dad's eyes welled with tears. "This," he said, "is what this family's really about." That '57 Bel Air wasn't just a car. It was a reminder, a testament, that the real value in what we do isn't always on the surface. Sometimes it's what's beneath, the ground we stand on, the foundation we build. Looking back, the journey from that day, Ryan handed me the last keys to this moment felt like a lifetime. But I'd do it all again, because sometimes being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. 1 year. That's all it took for everything to come full circle. I pulled up to the Springfield dealership on a crisp fall morning, the '69 Camaro purring beneath me like a beast finally tamed. The sun glinted off its cherry red paint, and for a moment, I just sat there, letting the memories flood back. This place had been the heart of the storm, the ground where the family war played out. Now it felt different, steady, quiet, full of purpose. The lot manager, Tom, greeted me at the door. We'd worked together through the chaos, and now he was running the show. "Adam," he said, nodding. "Good to see you. We got a bit of an unusual situation." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? What's that?" Tom leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. "Ryan's applying for a sales job." I almost laughed out loud. "Seriously?" He nodded, trying to keep a straight face. "Yeah." Said he wants to start fresh. Make amends. "You good with that?" I took a long look at the lot, our lot, and thought about everything that had happened. Ryan, the golden boy, the guy who almost burned it all down. Now here he was, coming back as just another employee. Part of me wanted to say no, but then I thought about the bigger picture. Redemption isn't about grudges. It's about growth. "Hire him," I said finally, a smirk creeping across my face. "But make him work Sundays." Tom blinked, surprised. "Fair enough," I added. "Maybe that'll keep him humble." We shared a laugh. That day, I realized how far we'd come. Not just me, but all of us. Atlas Motors had survived, thrived, evolved, because it wasn't just about cars or land or profits. It was about family, legacy, and knowing when to hold on and when to let go. I climbed back into the Camaro, feeling the leather seats hug me like an old friend. As I pulled out of the lot, I caught sight of Ryan on the sidewalk, haggling with a customer. He didn't see me. I didn't slow down. I just smiled. The road stretched out ahead, endless and promising. And I knew one thing for sure. I was exactly where I was meant to be. Here are some questions for you, our viewers. Have you ever been underestimated in your family or workplace? How did you handle it? What's more powerful in business, charisma or strategy? If you own the land under your business, how would you use that advantage? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notification bell because we have more stories coming up just for you.